kids.com. And if you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video with as many people as you can. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, kindly do it so that you don't miss any of my videos. So without any delay, let's get started. And today we are gonna learn about ES6 features. Right. So we are gonna learn about the new features that came in ECMA script 6. Right. So in ES6 or ECMA script 2015. Right. So without any delay, let's get started. Jam. Okay. So first of all, the new feature that came in ES6 or ECMA script 6 was classes, right? So classes were introduced in ES6, right? So a class is a type of function. So it is a kind of function, but instead of using the keyword function to initiate it, we use the keyword class. To make it, we don't use the function keyword, but we use the keyword class. And the properties are assigned inside a constructor method. So every class has a constructor method that sets the default properties and values of basically the default properties for the class, right? So and it is called automatically whenever you create an object of a class, right? So over here we have a class car, and in that we have a constructor method that is taking in one argument, right? And it is what basically doing, it is setting a variable named brand equals to name. So it is setting a new variable name, right? So basically it will set a variable brand. It is setting a new variable that is brand, right? And its value will be whatever we pass, right? So a property is being set over here for our class, and this is not such a useful class because over here we just have a property and nothing else. But this is just an example to show you how we create classes, right? And then we are creating an object of the class, right? So we are creating a variable my car, and basically what we are doing, we are using the new keyword to create an object of our car class, right? And we are saying that we want to make an object of the car class, right? And then we are passing the car class only Ford. So this is doing that when we are passing the value to our car class only, that and that is basically passing that value into the constructor method, right? So now it has got the value of name, and it has set the brand variable to Ford. And when we use document.write method to show what is the value of a brand property in the my car object of the car class, then we'll get Ford because we have set it to Ford. Okay, it didn't come. We are basically doing my car dot brand, so we are executing it, so it should write that. We'll just quickly just do get element by id demo dot inner html equals to this my car dot brand. Let's see now. Yeah, so now we can see it. So basically we access the, I don't know why document.write was not working, but we are now accessing the demo paragraph tag that we have made over here, and in its inner HTML we are writing my car.brand, so that is Ford, right? So now we can see that property brand was set to Ford by printing out its value. Now we have another example. The constructor function is called automatically when the object is initialized, that I've told you. And now we have another example where we are creating a method in the class, right? So we have a constructor method in our car class, right? And basically we are asking for a property named name, right? And we are setting the brand property. We are basically asking for a parameter named name, right? And then in the constructor method, we are setting the brand, we are setting a brand property of a car class to the value name, right? So whatever we pass, right? And now over here we have a present method that we are creating, so we don't need no function keyword, nothing. We can just get directly to create a method in classes. We can just directly give it name, its name, then the brackets where we can ask for parameters, and then our code block. And in this present method, what we are doing, we are returning I have a plus this dot brand, right? So this is basically when we are setting the variable over here, and when we are accessing it, this is referring to the object that to the object of the car class, right? So to the object that is calling the present method of the car class, right? So this is referring to my car, right? So it is saying my car dot brand, and my car's brand variable's value will be Ford because we are passing it Ford. So the present method will return I have a Ford. So over here we are creating an object of our car class, and we are passing Ford. So it is setting for this object of the car class, it is setting the brand's value to the name that we pass, that is Ford. And then the present method will also return for this method I have a Ford. And when we try to document or write my car dot present, so we are calling the present method, right? So it will return I have a Ford, and then we are using document dot write to print it on the screen. So I don't know why right now why document.write is not working. So we'll just stick to document.get element by ID. Right? And now if we try this, we'll get to see, oh, so we have an error. Okay, so I forgot to specify the var keyword over here, right? Because I was just trying to set a variable's value that was not created only, right? So I have a Ford. We are getting I have a Ford. Quite cool, right? Now we are moving on to a concept for classes that is called inheritance, right? Inheritance is a very important concept for classes, right? And we'll just get to learn about it in a second. Right. So now over here we have a class car, right? And in this same thing we are doing over here, we have a constructor that is taking in a name, and it is setting a variable brand for the object right now over here, right, to the name that it gets. And then we are creating a present method that is returning I have a this dot brand. So whatever brand value is, whatever we basically pass it. Then what we are doing, we have a class model that we have another class, and right, and then we are using the extends keyword to basically extend keyword. What it does, after the extends keyword, whatever class name you specify, that uh, that class's properties and methods and everything goes into the class from which you are extending the other class, right? So basically over here we are extending model from car, right? So all the properties and properties and methods have gone in this model class. And but to just use all the methods and all for in our model class of the car, basically to use the methods and properties of the car class in our model class, what we need to do in a constructor, and that is accepting two arguments over here. In this constructor, what we have to call the super method that will basically allow us to use the properties and methods of the class that we are extending from, right? And then we are because it is asking, its constructor method is asking for a parameter, we have to pass it a parameter also, so that the constructor method, when it is setting the value of this dot brand, it does not set it to undefined, right? It should have some value. So whatever the name the model class gets, we are passing it to the car class constructor that is setting this dot brand's value, right? So over here let's see the super method. So by calling the super method in the constructor method, we call the parents constructor method. So we are calling the parents constructor method, and we also get access to the parents properties and methods, right? So when we call the parents constructor method, we need to pass it a name. Then we are by ourselves, we are setting a property named model and setting to its value to mod, whatever model we get, right? And then we are creating a show method that is basically returning this dot present. So because now we have the properties and methods of the car class in this, as we have extended and called the super method, we are able to use the present method using this dot present. This is referring to the object that is currently calling the show method, right? And this dot present we are calling over here, so it will return this dot present plus comma it is a plus this dot model, so whatever value this dot model has. So right, so over here we have a variable sorry so over here we have a variable my car that is an object of our model class, and we are passing it Ford and Mustang, right? So the name is Ford, so that is going to the car classes constructor, and that will set the property brand, right? Brand equals to the name, so it will set basically Ford, and it will come in here, and the present method will have, it will return us I have a Ford, right? So whenever we call present, we'll get I have a Ford, and this dot model is set to Mustang, right? And then over here below this, when we are doing document or get element by id dot inner html equals my car dot show, the show method is returning this dot present, meaning I have a, and brand's value is Ford, so it will say I have a Ford plus comma it is a plus this dot model whose value is Mustang. So our final result will be I have a Ford, it is a Mustang, right? So we get I have a Ford, it is a Mustang. Quite cool. So now we have covered classes, and now we'll move on to the next concept that was introduced in ES6, and that is arrow functions, right? So arrow functions allow us to write shorter function syntax, right? So before with normal functions over here we created like this. So we have a hello, the hello is the name of a function, then we do equals to, and then we give the function keyword, then we give the parenthesis, and then we give the code block where we are returning a value hi. But with arrow functions it is quite different. We give the function name over here equals to, then we don't need to give the function keyword, we just give the parenthesis. Then an additional thing is to add a equals to and a greater than arrow sign, right? And then we have to give a code block that will return us hi. And even shorter syntax with arrow functions can be hello equals to the parenthesis, then this arrow thingy, and then it returns it by itself. So basically when only we have one statement, it returns the value. If we don't need to give the return keyword, because it returns the value by itself, right? And moreover, if we only have one statement, we can omit the curly braces also. So we can omit the code block also and directly give over here what we want to return. And with parameters, we over here we can, in a parenthesis we can specify which parameters we need to accept and then move on with our arrow functions. But if we only have one method, one parameter, then what we can do, we can omit the parenthesis also. So we can omit the parenthesis also if only we have one parameter. If we have less than one parameter or more than one parameter, we have to give the parenthesis, right? Quite cool. Now we'll see about the this keyword, right? So I moved it over here because it was disturbing the code, right? So now we'll move on to the this keyword. So the handling of this is also I'll just remove this statement. Right. So the handling of this is also different in arrow functions compared to regular functions. So the this keyword's handling is also different in arrow functions compared to regular functions. In regular functions, the this keyword represented the object that called the function. So whenever we call a function, a regular function, the this keyword referred to basically the object that called the function, right, which invoked the function, which could be the window object, the document object, a button, or whatever. With arrow functions, the this keyword always represents the object that defined the arrow function. So like we any object that defined the arrow function will be referred by arrow functions when using this. But any function that calls a normal function, any function basically, any object that calls a normal function, right? Any object that calls a normal function, this will refer to that object, right? But any object that calls the arrow function, this will refer to the object that defined that arrow function, right? So let us take a look at two examples to understand the difference. Both examples call a method twice. First when the page loads, and once again when the user clicks a button. The first example uses a regular function and the second example uses an arrow function, right? So the result shows that the first example returns two different objects, window and button, because those two objects were the objects that invoked the method. But the second example returns the header object twice, because the header object must be the object that defined the method, right? So let's see. Over here we'll see with the regular function. So I just have to select this till the regular function is going on. Right, so over here we have a class header, right? Then we have a constructor method where we are just setting a color properties value to red. Then we have a change color function that is a normal function, right? And in this what we are doing document.get element by id demo. So we are bringing a demo, basically p tag, and we are setting this inner HTML to this. So whatever value is of this keyword, that will be set as the inner HTML of our demo p tag, right? And then outside this class, what we are doing, we are creating an object of this class, that is right, and of this header class, right? And I uncommented this by mistake. Right, so the window object calls the function. So when the window object calls the function, you're doing window.add event listener. So we are adding the event listener, a load event listener, right? So we are adding a load event listener on our window object, right? And whenever the window object will load, what we are doing, we are just calling my headers change color method. So now this this keyword will refer to the window object as the window object's event invoked it, right? So because of the window object only, this change color method was invoked. That's why it is referring, this keyword is referring to the window object. And the second time, what we are doing, we are bringing the element button and we are adding an event listener on it, and whenever it is clicked, what we are doing, we are calling the change color method. So right now, because whenever the button will be clicked, the button is invoking the change color method, so that's why it will refer to the button object. So when I run this, so it is saying my header. Oh, I always forget to give the var keyword. Okay, so over here the window was loaded and we saw object window, because object window was loaded and it invoked this my header change color method. That's why that object, this referred to that object. But when we click, we get object HTML button element. So this is coming here because the button, because of the button, the method was invoked, and this definition says when we are using a normal function, this keyword refers to the object that call the function, and the button object call the function, because whenever it was invoke the function, so button object invoke the function. That's why we are getting to see object window and object HTML button element. uh, these were comments that I wanted to add. Right, so now with the arrow function, we have a class header, we have a constructor method, but the change color method is just an arrow function. This is only the difference. But now in a variable my header, over here we are creating an object of our header class, and then what we are doing, we are adding an event listener on the video object, and whenever it will be loaded, it will call the change color method. So right now the window object is invoking the change color method, right? But it is an arrow function. So in arrow functions, this refers to the object that defined the method. So my header defined this change color method, right? Because over here we are calling my header dot change color, and so my header defined the change color method of my header, right? So that's why it will refer to my header, because it only defined the change color method, and we have learned that the object that defines a method will be basically this will refer to that. And then a button object that calls the function, over here we have a button element, and on that we are adding an event listener click, right? And whenever it will be clicked, we are calling my header dot change color, right? So over here the button element invoked the basically the change color method, but my header defined it, so it will refer to the my header object only. So over here when the when the window object is loaded, still we'll get object because my header defined the object, and basically whenever we try to print out our own objects, then it shows object, and when we press this, then also we'll get object. That indicates that this is referring to our own object, that is my header, that only define the basically the method change color, right? Our next concept is about variables. So two more types of variables came in ES6, that were let and const, right? So basically we know about var, right? So var is basically used to define variables that have a local scope, basically a function scope and a global scope, right? But the let keyword, when we use the let keyword, it has a block scope, a function scope, and a global scope, right? So a block scope is added with the let keyword. So whenever we use the let keyword, basically uh, uh, when we try like create a variable in a for loop. So for example, you create a variable in a for loop using the let keyword, then that variable will remain for the for loop only, right? It will, like, you have a function and then you have a for loop in it, in which you define a variable x using the let keyword. Then that x variable will basically be until the for loop ends. So it will be used just for inside the for loop, it will not be for outside the for loop, right? So this is the new addition, block scope, for right, in ES6 using let And then we have a const also, that is basically used to define constants, right? And but this keyword also has block scope, functional scope, and global scope. But there's one difference. The difference sorry, there's one confusion, right? There's one misleading thing about const, right? So what happens when you create a const variable? For example, you have created a constant, right, x, and its value is an array, right? So its value is an array, right? And what the constant will do, if you try to change, like you do x equals to some other array, then it will give an error because it will say this is a constant, you can't change its value, right? But if you try to add an element in that same array, or 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 basically remove an element or change an element in the same array, then what will happen, it will not throw an error. Though it is a constant, you will be able to change the array, because what you are doing, you're changing the array's items, not the whole array, right? So when you change, like when you do x equals to some other array or something else, then basically you are the variable is reassigned to another memory location. But when you are trying to add an element or remove an element from a constant array, then what happens, it is changing the value that is already there in the memory location. So you have a memory location, right? This is a memory location, and basically when you try to just do, like you have a constant x equals to some array, and then you try to change it like x equals to some other array, so that some other array is saved in another memory location. So then the x variable will point to that other memory location. But when you try to add an element or delete an element, so what you'll do, you'll do x like dot, basically like push, you use the push method to add an element, right? And then it will be added. So in this memory location, whatever array will be there, its value will be changed, an item will be added to it, new, it will not go on new memory location. So that's why constant is not not able to understand that. Basically it only checks that if it goes to a new memory location, right? It checks that if the value is changing and going to a new memory location, then I have to stop it. If the memory location that was there, and I have to change that memory location's value that is in it, then it will not bring an error, right? So yeah, this is what is constants misleading, that you can add or delete elements in an array with a constant, right? Now we'll move on to the next concept, that is destructuring, right? So let's see this. Over here, what we have is that, let me just uncomment this. Come on, come on. Come on, command V and command V. Okay, so now over here, what is over here, happening right now, let's see. Over here we have a function calculate a comma b, so we are passing it a and b, right? Two things, right? And what it will do, it will create a constant add, and its value will be the addition of both. It will create a constant subtract, and it will be the subtraction of both. Then it will create a constant of multiply, and it will be the multiplication of both. And then it will create a constant divide, and it will basically have the value of the division of both. And then this will return an array of addition, subtraction, multiply, and divide, right? Right? And then over here outside, what we are doing, we are using destructuring. So what is happening over here, we have a constant, right? And because calculate 4 7 is returning an array of addition, subtraction, multiplying and division, over here we'll just think that there is an array over here, right? And then what we are doing, we are over here like this creating 4 variables. So we are creating 4 variables over here like this, right? And every variable has, so the first variable has the first value, the second variable has the second value, the third variable has the third value that is in the array, and the fourth variable has the fourth value that is in the array. So now we, instead of like doing instead of like saving the array in the variable x, right? So instead of saving it in a variable x and accessing it like x bracket 0, x bracket 1, x bracket 2, x bracket 3, what we are doing, we are just dividing it into variables. We are taking every value and saving it in a variable, and now we can use that variable directly instead of using an arrays item every time. So over here, how is it doing it? Basically it is saying that eh, let's just think over here that over here we have an array of 1 2 3 4. So over here what is happening, the first like this, when you give the first variable, this is the first variable for us and its value is the first value in the array. The second value variable is this after the comma, and its second value is the second value in the array, right? Then over here we have the third variable after the comma, and its value is the third value in the array. And then the fourth variable is after the comma over here, and its value is the fourth value in the array, right? And then what we are doing over here, we are doing document get element by id demo.inithtml every time. Who is it? Right, sorry. So we are doing document get element by id demo.innerhtml equals to over here what we are doing, we are setting it to the a p tag sum plus add, the add variables value plus the p tag close, right? Shivansh, I will come in 15 minutes. Sorry. Okay, so over here next what we are doing, we are accessing demo, and in HTML we are setting it to basically difference. uh, uh, we are setting p tag, then we are saying difference plus the subtract value plus the p tag close, right? So I'll just add the plus equals to sign just to show you that what will be the final result, right? So basically we are just adding p tags and whatever thing we are whatever calculation we are doing and its value, right? We are just showing that, and destructuring is very powerful, right? And right now you must not be understanding the use of it, but it is very very powerful. I say it is very very helpful and very very powerful, right? So we have sum 1, difference 2, product 3, and quotient 4. Sorry. Right? So we are getting to see this now, right? And now we have destructured arrays. Now what we can do, we can destructure. What we can do, we can destructure basically objects also, right? So why only arrays? You can destructure objects also, right? So over here we have an object vehicle 1 that has a lot of properties and values, key value pairs, right? And then what we are doing below here, we are calling the my vehicle method and passing it this object vehicle 1, and right, and this function my vehicle, what we are doing, what we are doing in the place where we are taking the parameters, at that place only we are destructuring the elements of the object, that basically we are destructuring the object over there and then only, right? So over here, what we are doing over here, every variable that we have to give to destructure objects, first of all you need to give curly braces, then you need to give the name, right? So you need to give the name of the key, right? The key whose value you want to destructure. So over here we have given the type key. So this is saying that create a type variable, right, whose value is the type key's value, right? And basically whatever matches with the keys will be its value. So over here it will say create a color variable for this function whose value will be the color properties value. Then over here we have seen brand. Oh, so we have found a brand property, right? So there's a brand property in our vehicle also, and set the brand properties value to this brand variable's value. And then finally we are doing the same with model, right? So to destructure objects, we can basically take every value, every every value that we want separately. We can create variables for it using destructuring by just giving them the same name as the property name, right? And then it will destructure and you can use them like variables instead of doing like vehicle1 dot brand, vehicle1 dot model, vehicle1 dot type. Instead you can just destructure them in the parameters place only and just say type, color, brand, model, and directly access it. It is much more easier and faster, right? So over here we have a message that is my plus type. So the type's value is car, is a color red plus a space, brand, that is Ford. So my car is a red Ford plus model Ford Mustang, right? And then it will be full stop, and then what we are doing is just document writing message. And over there we have used I don't know what has happened to me. I've used document write so badly over there. Oh, double dots. Why isn't it trying? Yeah, so my car is a red Ford Mustang as expected, right? Then what is here? We have nested destructuring also, right? So over here we have a vehicle one which has brand, model, type, year, color, and then it has a registration object in it, basically an object in an object, right? So over here what we're doing, we are passing my vehicle one, and we are destructuring model, and then we are doing registration. So we'll see at the syntax, look at the syntax, right? So we want to destructure this state property that is in this registration object, that is in this vehicle one object. So to do that, when there's a nested object, you have to give that nested object's name a colon, that is like there, and then give the open brackets, and then give the name of the property that you want to destructure. So like this, it will create a state variable now that will have the value of Texas. So it will match the values. So you found a state variable over here. So the state property had the value Texas. So set its value Texas. So now it will show my model. So my Mustang is registered in state, that is Texas, right? And it will not write it right now because I'm using this bad syntax. Oh, double dots, right? So my Mustang is registered in Texas, right? So we learned about destructuring also. Now we'll see about array methods. So ES6 added certain array methods. One of them is the map method, right? So ES6 added certain array methods, and we'll look at the map method right now, right? So over here we have a constant my array that has 1 2 3, right? And basically the map method, what it does, if it loops on every item and returns something for it, and then it creates, basically in the end it creates a new list for uh, of all. Basically the map method gives us a new list of whatever operation we, whatever over here, that whatever we give in the map method and whatever it returns, that basically the map method creates a new array where items are added for every for basically every item in the array, and a certain operation happens to the map method, and when the all the operations are done, some value is saved in some all the values that were returned basically by the function that we pass the map method are saved in an array, right? Are saved in an array that we can save in any variable. So let's see over here. Over here, what we are doing, the array has a map method, right? So this map method will give us an array, right? So for every item, what it will do, it will get an item, right? And for every item it will multiply that item and return it, and then this map method in the end take all the returned values and save them in the array, and then return that array, and then that array we can save in my list, right? And now over here what we can do, we'll have a my list where we'll have the values 2 4 and 6, like, because we are doing we for every item we are doing item into 2, so item into 2 will be basically the double values, right? So we have 2 4 6, quite cool. Now we are on the spread operator, right? And then we'll have modules, and then we'll finally learn about the ternary operator. Very cool stuff. Okay, so the spread operator divides object items into separate ones. Like if we have any array like 1 2 3, like this array over here, the spread operator will extract all its items, right, and make it a kind of list, like individual items 1 2 3, 1 comma 2 comma 3 individual items. So the spread operator basically divides the array items into individual separate items, right? So over here we have a constant my numbers 1, that is an array that contains 1 2 3. Then we have a my numbers 2 that contains an array 4 5 6, and then we have a constant numbers combined, and we are giving the array brackets, and then what we are doing dot dot dot. So this is the spread operator, dot 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 is the spread operator. Then we are giving the array name that we want to spread. So basically what you're giving numbers 1. So what it will bring individual items 1 comma 2 comma 3. So what it will bring 1 comma 2 comma 3, and because it is enclosed in brackets, it will become an array, right? So cool. But over here after this we have given a comma, so after this it will add a comma, and then we are spreading one more array, that is numbers 2. And what this will do, it will bring 4 5 6 individually, 4 5 6, but because we have given these square brackets, it will save them like all the items like in an array, right? So if we just do this, do that, then what we'll get in the numbers combined, we'll get 1 2 3 4 5 6, because all the individual items are coming, and then we are saving them in square brackets, so that's why they will behave like an array, and basically they will become an array, right? The spread of operator is often used in combination with destructuring. So mostly you use the spread operator with destructuring, right? So assign the first and second items from numbers to variables and put the rest in an array. So over here there's a bit of confusion, right? So over here what is happening, there are two things. There's a spread operator and then there's a rest parameter, right? So basically there's a spread operator and the rest parameter. They both have the ditto same syntax, but but they work in the completely opposite way. They both work in the completely opposite way. So over here, what is happening? Like first, let's firstly read the code. So over here we have a numbers array that has 1 2 3 4 5 6 in it. Then we have a constant 1 comma 2, and then we are using the spread operator over here to gather the rest of the items, right, equals to numbers, right? But this is not kind of making sense because the spread operator spreads, right? It basically converts items, individual items, into basically it converts arrays into individual items. So the spread operator converts array items into individual items, right? But over here what we are doing, we are taking the items and trying to form an array. So let's read the text first. So over here we are kind of using the rest parameter that looks the same as the spread operator. So it looks exactly the same as the spread operator, but works completely the opposite way. What happens with rest is that when you have individual items like 1 comma 2 comma 3, then it will convert it into an array like 1 comma 2 comma 3, that in an array, right? So over here this is the same case. We are destructuring this. 1 is the value 1, 2 is the value 2, and basically rest is using the rest parameter over here, right, that converts items into an array. So these are the leftover items, and now these are converted into an array and saved in the rest variable, right? And then we print 1, we'll get 1 shown, then we print 2, so we'll get 2 shown, and then we print rest, so we'll get 3 4 5 6 in an array, right? And because we are doing equals to, we are not adding in the inner HTML, that's why it is just showing that. So we get 1 2 and 3 4 5 6 as expected, right? So the rest parameter was also introduced in ES6. It looks like just like the spread operator, but it is completely the different thing, right? And we understood it over here. If you didn't understand, just rewind the video a bit, right? So we can use the spread operator with objects too, right? So we can use the spread operator with objects also, right? So over here, okay, so over here what is happening, I'll just move my video. Yeah, so over here we have a my vehicle that is brand Ford model Mustang color red, and then we have a update my vehicle that is type car year 2021 and color yellow, and then we have a constant my updated vehicle that is basically an object, right, and it has dot 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 my vehicle, right? So it has dot 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 my vehicle. So basically this will destructure this my vehicle over here, right? And all its items are coming over here. Then we have given all its properties and values, right? Then we have given a comma, and we are spreading out update my vehicle also. So it will work the same as arrays, but and all these items will come over here. But the resulting object will be an object with containing these both items, that will have brand, model, color, type, year, color. So there are two times colors, but we have seen the color property that is after, in the end, the latest one is considered, right? So basically it will be brand Ford, model Mustang, type car, year 2021, and color yellow. And when we log out the my updated vehicle, we'll see the same. Brand Ford, model Mustang, color yellow, type car, and year 2021. So it is one of the same things for using spread operator for objects and arrays. It is the same behavior, right? Now we move on to modules, right? So JavaScript modules allow you to break up your code into separate files, right? So over here we'll just correct this and then go to our separate files. We'll over here now in this section learn about the export statements, right? So over here, first we'll go to named export. So over here what we are doing, we have a constant name Jesse and constant age 40, and we are giving export keyword before both of them. So what is happening, it is basically exporting these. Exporting these means that we can now use these in different basically files, right? So if we have a file like our script.js, we can import this module over here named export, and we can use these two variables, right? So this is allowing us to basically clean up our code and not scatter up everything in one file. We can do the same thing with this, like this also. Constant name equals Jesse, constant age equals 40, and then we'll export it like this in curly braces and then name comma age. So it will also do the same thing, right? So over here, now we'll move on to default exports. I will give you every difference and all when we'll go on to our script.js, right? So over here we have a message function, right, that has constant name, age Jesse, name Jesse, age 40, and this function will return name, that is Jesse, plus age. So Jesse is 40 years old, and then we are exporting this default message. So right now this will also export this message thing, and we will be able to use now this message function in any other file. So let's take script.js in example, right? So basically we have import statements, right? That the import statements are statements through which we can import things from other files or modules. So over here what we are doing, we are importing named comma age from named export.js, right? But if we only wanted to import age, we could remove the name, and this would have imported age for us. If we only had to import name, we could remove the age, right? And this would have imported only the name for us, right? Then what we have, we are importing message from default export.js. So we are importing a message function, and now we can use all these things, right? But the question that must be raising in your mind is, what is the difference between default exports and named exports? I'll tell you. Named exports are basically exports where, like, I'll just tell you like this. If in this default export.js, if you remove this and export it like this, then in your anywhere when you are importing this message, you have to import it with the same name. So you have to import it like this: import message from default export.js, right? But if you give default export default message, you can import it any way you like. So you can say import message 1 from default export.js, import message3 from default export.js, and you can import it using any name you like, and it will not throw an error to you, right? Because default exports allow you to import any name what you like, in any name, whatever you want you can name it to import it, right? And then basically you have to use the same name, right? Okay, and there can be only one default export in a file, right? Quite cool. Right, so over here the message oh, I didn't show you the result. So over here what we are doing, we are importing name and age from our named export file, and then we are importing our message function from our default export.js. Then we are accessing demo and setting its inner HTML to name, then we are setting to age, and then we are calling message method, right? So the message method will return us the message method will return us Jesse is 40 years old. So it will show us Jesse is 40 years old. And now because this is a default export, we could have imported it like message3 and message3, and this wouldn't have given us an error, right? But we are getting an error, unexpected token on 291st line, right? So I added an extra bracket. Jesse is 40 years old, as expected, right? But if we try to import like this, like in a normal export, if we try to import it like this, name one and age one, and we just try to use them, it will bring an error because it is just a normal export, not a default export. And in named exports, we have to import it using the exact name that was used to export it, right? So it does not, so it is saying that named export.js does not provide an export named age1 and name1, right? So this was for modules. Now we are on a final topic, that is the ternary operator. So the ternary operator is a simplified conditional operator like if else, right? So it is basically simplified. If you want to use if and else statement, it is just simplified into shorter syntax, right? So over here the syntax is that you give the condition, right? And whatever you give over here will be executed if the expression was true, and whatever you give after the colon will be executed if the expression was false, right? Here is an example of using if else, right? So we have a function render app that will basically we have a render app method that will basically show welcome, right? And then we have a render login method that will basically show us please log in, right? And then we have a variable authenticated whose variable value is set to true, right? And then we are checking if authenticated. So if we are authenticated, that is true, so it will go in here and it will call render app, right? So it will call this method that will show welcome. But else, if it is not authenticated, it will go in the render login method and it will say please log in. But right now it will show us welcome, right? The same thing we could do with the ternary operator, and it could have shortened our syntax a lot over here. So over here we have our render app and render login methods, then we have our authenticated, and we are checking if authenticated over here like this. So yes, authenticated is true, so when it is true, we go in here and execute this. So render app will execute welcome, right? But if it was false, I'll just show you also. First of all, let me show you welcome. Yeah, so if it is false, you'll see that it will go over here after the colon, because in false statement it goes after the colon and it is showing us please log in, right? So thank you guys. If you like the video, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video with as many people as you can. Thank you guys. Bye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep watching my videos. Done!